Charles Dahlquist, National Commissioner for the Boy Scouts of America and former General President of the Young Men's Organization of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
Honored to be here, Bob. Thank you.
As a National Commissioner for the Boy Scouts of America, how significant is it that the LDS Church is discontinuing its participation in the varsity and venturing scouting programs?
Well, from a numbers program, it is significant. There's no question. And I mean, we've got 133,000 young men that are in varsity and venturing programs. And so that is significant. From a financial standpoint, there will also be some financial concerns there. From an impact on the youth, it may not be as significant. Let me tell you why. Venturing's been around for 25 years, and it's a wonderful program, just redone 2 years ago, and I was involved in that redo. It was done in a way that would match the needs, make sure that it's relevant to the needs of our youth today. But in the LDS Church, for whatever reason, it just really hasn't locked in. Its success has been spotty. There have been some units where the leaders have caught a vision, have gone to training, and really built a program that has strengthened these young men and used the concept of ALPS, which is adventure, leadership, personal development, and service, and have had a wonderful program to help these young men. But those are in a very small minority. Many of them are registered, use some of the resources of scouting, go up to the high adventure bases, benefit from the insurance and some of the other things, but not the full program. So I think from that standpoint, it may not be as great. However, the opportunity for change is unbelievable, because if you take a unit that is functioning well and is focused on preparing these young men to serve missions and is helping them to be physically strong, mentally awake, morally straight, emotionally prepared, living the Scout Oath and Law, strengthening their spiritual testimony, they're going to take whatever program the church gives them and they're going to move ahead with it, and it's going to be a great program. If you take those that have defaulted to basketball or to some other activities that have really not helped in the preparation of young men for missions, kind of like a leaf in the stream and not much direction, not much prior planning. As the church gives them some specific direction, unified direction from the brethren in Salt Lake down to the local leaders, this could be an opportunity for a real shot in the arm for these young men. And you know, Bob, you and I know that we've got one less year to prepare these young men for missions than we had a couple of years ago. When President Monson announced the 18-year age when young men could go on missions, that meant we had one less year of preparation. So I think the brethren are feeling that, which they should. And so I think this is a very positive move for the brethren. Plus, that's just talking domestically. That's not talking about the impact that the development of this program can, and I believe will have, outside the United States and Canada. It could be huge to those young men who really have no activity program in the priesthood across the world, whether it's in Germany or whether it's in Bangkok or Latin America or Africa, wherever it is. I think they will benefit from this move by the church.
Why is it that the Venturing and Varsity Scout programs did not catch on in the church? I mean, you've worn both hats.
I have. And that's a program that, or that's a question that comes up almost every time I go out. And I'm out someplace in the country, in the world, every weekend. I think part of it comes to the fact that for decades it's been considered optional. And once you give somebody an option, particularly somebody who may not have had a vision of what it means to have a good youth program, and you know, we've talked about the fact that if somebody isn't trained, they default to the program that they experienced as a boy, which could be very good. It also could be very lackluster, fun-oriented, but no purpose-oriented. It could include very expensive events, but very little character development. So when you put an option in front of them, they're not going to take the option that builds character normally, because that takes some effort and work and training. And so it just hasn't caught on there. And so I think that's probably the main reason. What's interesting is Venturing and Varsity are actually simpler programs, organizational-wise, than Boy Scouting is.
With this change, are any of the age limits going to change? For instance, are Boy Scouts still going to be able to get their Eagle Scout Award up to the age of 18?
The answer to that is yes. Nothing will change. There is one thing that we are looking very carefully at and that is the number of overnight campouts that a boy needs in order to make first class. That was recently increased from 3 to 6 because they wanted kids to get out. Being out in the open is a very positive part of the scouting experience and of a youth experience. But for many of these young men, that means that they can't get their first class before they are, before they become 12 and go into the Deacon's Quorum. So for that reason, we're looking very carefully at that to make sure that these young men have a good scouting experience and can still realistically make those requirements on time.
How important is scouting to the LDS Church?
I talk to individuals that say, you know, my life was changed as a result of scouting. I just got off the telephone from a former bishop who's now serving as a Stake Young Men president, and he expressed some great concerns that now this be seen instead of as a drop back, which many will see it as a drop back. Now we can do our own thing. We don't have to worry about talking varsity and venturing, because he has built a marvelous program that helps these young men go on missions and be prepared. And he said, that's my greatest concern. And so you talk to him, scouting is very important. You talk to mothers who have seen the impact in their sons' lives as they have gone to camp. One of the things that the missionary department told us when we were in the Young Men General Presidency was, when we asked them, what can we tell priesthood leaders that will help them to not only get young men on missions, but keep them there so they don't come home early? And they said, number one, teach them to work, and number two, give them an away from home experience before they go on their mission. It's amazing what a scouting experience like that does, or an amazing backpacking experience. It's not the fun experiences. I mean, they have fun, and fun is an important part of a youth activity program, but sometimes the activities that make the most lifetime experience an impact in a boy's life is when he does something that he does not believe that he could have done when he began it. And everything from a 5 or a 50-mile hike to catching a fish, or learning a new program on a computer, or being able to ask a girl out on a date. That's all part of this venturing, and so it's those things that get them outside their comfort area, that if we do not do that when they are young, they will, when they come home from their missions, they will just yo-yo back right into their being with their buddies, and they won't.
Pre-mission life, yeah.
They won't be comfortable with being outside their comfort area. So I think to those of us that have caught a vision of scouting and what it can do, I think it's very important. And I think over the years, you see the great impact in scouting in the church. And so I would say that, as with anything, there are those who feel strongly about one side and strongly about the other side, but I think it's been a very important part of a young man's development in scouting, and in the Aaronic priesthood for that matter. Let me just mention one other thing, and that is, there was a reason why President Hinckley's father and Oscar Kirkham went back to New York, and that is to look at this scout program to see if it would lock in with the Aaronic priesthood. When you think of what a young man experiences as a patrol leader, it helps him to be a better Deacon's Quorum president. It also helps him to be a better Elders Quorum president and a better father and a better husband and all of those things. So those experiences, to my way of thinking, are very important.
Conversely, how important is the LDS Church to the Boy Scouts of America?
Well, the LDS Church is very important to the Boy Scouts of America. There's no question, for a couple of reasons. Number one, our charter partners, irrespective of whether it's the LDS Church or the Lutheran Church or the Catholic Church or the Islamic faith or the Rotary clubs, they are all very important because our mission, contrary to some other youth-serving organizations, is to help them to be able to accomplish their goals for their youth. And so we say, here is this program. You choose which part of the program you feel will help your youth accomplish those goals. And over the whole history of the BSA, the church has done just that, and that is they have said, okay, we're not going to use Tiger Cubs. It's for the younger boys. We'll take Cub Scouting. We'll take Scouting, and then they had Varsity and Venturing. They said, we're not going to take co-ed Venturing. That's not part of ours. We have our young women program. And at this point in time, the church has said, we're not going to use these two. That's the prerogative of a charter partner. But our responsibility is now to help them to make this transition as effective as it can be. We hope for the church's success in building this program for them. It is also important for us to be able to strengthen the Cub Scouting and the Scouting program so that those programs that remain with the LDS Church are very, very effective and continue to touch the lives of youth and their families.
There has been a lot of reporting out there interpreting this move by the LDS Church of discontinuing the Varsity and Venturing Scouting programs as being the first of a split from the Boy Scouts of America altogether. Is that accurate?
I don't know the answer to that. You'd have to be clairvoyant to be able to say that. There's been talk about that since back in the days of President Benson, and probably before that. I don't know the answer to that. You know, we're living in a very different world. Individuals ask me, is scouting as relevant today as it was 50 years ago? And to me, it's even more relevant. All you have to do is crack the book of, or crack the cover of the Scout Handbook, and you'll see that it's one of the most relevant texts on youth that we have. And so it's there to help and to support the church. And but nobody's clairvoyant. The brethren will make their decision, and they will make it in time. And whether this is or is not, you know, we move ahead. But you know, Elder Holland made an interesting comment, and that is, he said, "We're in, we're all in." Could that change tomorrow? Of course it could. And but that's been no different than it has been from day one. President Lee said decades ago, when the Boy Scouts of America fails to meet the needs of the Aaronic priesthood, something else will raise up, and we'll use that. So I think that's important. I don't know where the church is going, and with the next step, I would hope it would include Cub Scouting and Scouting, and we also stand ready as they develop this new program to assist with any resources that we have, because the LDS Church is very important because they have so many youth that are the leaders of our country in the future. And anything we can do to help them or any other charter partner is important.
It's no secret that the gay leadership issue in the Boy Scouts of America caused a bit of a strain and kind of caused the LDS Church to step back and reassess its relationship with the Boy Scouts. Did that play any role at all, to your mind or to your knowledge, in this move to discontinue Varsity and Venturing programs?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the brethren on that. I just really don't know. So it was a difficult time for everybody. We're living in a very, very different world. And we're living in a world in a time where there are changing values. There also is a time when we want to be able to lift and nurture and strengthen all. We're also living in a culture where the tendency is to be unkind, and that's not what scouting teaches. When we raise our arm to the square and say trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, we take that very seriously, and those things that happen with regard to gay kids and other kids of various beliefs, should not happen. And in scouting, we believe in treating everybody with respect. In fact, somebody once said, if you really want to get serious about world peace, go to a World Scout Jamboree where you have Muslim kids and Israeli kids not only camping next to each other, but trading uniform parts and trading hats and trading patches and stories and food and everything else, and building relationships of trust. And that's what scouting is all about.
The church has been saying that it is developing or wants to develop a program, a global program for young men, so that whether they have a scouting program available to them or not, this program will help them in those areas that they want to grow young men. Do you ever see that program supplanting Boy Scouts once it is rolled out? I would imagine it's still being planned and developed. When it is rolled out, do you see the Boy Scouts taking a back seat and perhaps going away as the activity arm of the Aaronic priesthood?
Well, I would hope not, because I see a real value in the scouting program in the lives of those boys, especially in the area of Cub Scouting and in Boy Scouting. I'm not going to be making that decision. There are going to be 15 men that are going to be making that decision. The First Presidency and the 12 will make that. They will not do it in a haphazard way. They will do it in a careful, thoughtful, inspired way. I would hope that that would not happen. But in that same breath, I have traveled the world enough. In fact, I just got back from Europe, and all over, I see young men in the LDS Church who, with their parents, are crying out for some type of an activity program that will help them to be better. We have too many programs that are non-existent, too many mutual programs that have no value, no purpose, no depth building, no character building. Maybe they, instead of having a round ball that has Spalding on it and looks like a basketball, it's a soccer ball. But they need those programs, and we have hundreds of thousands of kids in the LDS Church all over the world. So I applaud the brethren. What they learn from this program from 14 to 18 in the teachers and the priest quorum, I think will be a wonderful step to be able to meet the needs of these young people across the world.
Have you any idea what that program is going to look like?
I don't.
Or when it's going to be rolled out?
No idea. You know, they put a program together back in 2000, and it was called the Duty to God program. And the Duty to God program overlapped some of what scouting did. It had areas of quorum, family, personal development, and it was actually quite a broad, wonderful program. And we found that in pockets across the world, it formed the foundation of their activity program. Again, it was very spotty because it was just out there. But for example, Switzerland took that Duty to God program and combined it with the Swiss scouting requirements and put together an unbelievable program for the youth of that country. They actually did their own badges. And so I'm hopeful that this will be a wonderful opportunity for these kids to be able to grow, because they're all there and they need this experience.
With the Boy Scouts of America allowing the church to pretty much do what it wants to in regard to how they approach the gay rights issues and gay leadership and gay Boy Scouts and that kind of thing. In doing that, does that not create a legal conundrum for the Boy Scouts?
No, because the religious rights, the freedoms that we have are very significant. For that reason, we can do with our faith-based charter partners things that we can't do, for example, with the Rotary Club or some other groups. And remember that the charter partner option is key to what we are. And that is, we don't say, here's the program, you do it. We say, here's the program. As Elder Hale said, we put it on a cake plate and we say, now you use it to strengthen your program. So no, it doesn't put us in a position of jeopardy that way.
From your perspective as the National Commissioner for the Boy Scouts of America, where do you see this relationship going with the LDS Church? I mean, there are those that say it's diverging.
Well, you know, there are those who have been talking about that for years. When I was the Young Men General President, there were those who said, you know, it'll only be a short while and the church will be out of scouting. It happened before I was Young Men General President, so this isn't new. I would hope that that relationship continues in a very positive way, with us being able to help strengthen the young men now from 8 until age 14 in a very positive way, and that the church will see that and see that this is a wonderful way for these young men to be able to be involved in Cub Scouting, to be able to be in Boy Scouts, to get their Eagle Award, and then to have a program for 4 years that is a marvelous springboard to their missionary experience. So I would hope that it's a very positive experience.
Charles Dahlquist, National Commissioner for the Boy Scouts of America and former General President of the Young Men's Organization of the LDS Church. Thank you so much for being part of 3 Questions.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for letting me be part of your program.